So here we are, getting close to wrapping up the month of August and talking about connecting with creation. It's easy, I think, with lives as fast-paced as ours to lose track of our connections, not just our connections with other people, but our connections with everything. So I've been speaking this month about how the sky is representative of our consciousness, just holding everything that goes by without having to react to it or interact in any particular way, just allowing it to go by. And that's like the clear consciousness that we live in. Our experiences, our ideas, other people's ideas, everything just flows by, and we can witness that without being reactive to it. Easier said than done, I know. And I spoke about our connection with the earth, how much we are like the earth and other creatures in it. So similar are we to the patterns that have been used by the infinite in creation, that wisdom that brings forth a particular type of pattern and then uses it again and again in various creatures and plants and situations. And I spoke last week about the sacred waters, that we are really the water planet. Now today, and this came about because actually I watched a television program that was called Remarkably Bright Creatures, which was a little movie with Sally Field about her connection with an octopus. And when I began to think about connecting with creation, what I recognized is that not only are we connected to all the creatures of the earth, whether they fly or swim or crawl or walk, whatever they do, that we are actually creatures too. I think that I have grown up in such a way, and maybe you have too, to think of ourselves as human beings as a different thing. There's the earth, and there's, all of the plants and animals, and then there's us, the human being, the something special, the extra something. And I was thinking just a few minutes ago about a very old Star Trek movie with the original cast, in which, I'm not sure I'm remembering this correctly, but what I remember of it is that this starship crew had to travel back into the past to deliver a message that had been received by them from some civilization that really was not for humanity. It was for the humpback whales. The message was not for us, it was for them, but they were extinct, apparently, on the planet or something. So the crew had to go back into the past to deliver this message to the humpback whales. And it just reminds me of the idea that we are creatures too, and not all messages might be for us that are coming through the world. We look at that little image of the bumblebee as the August theme, that little image of the bumblebee going to the flower. And I was looking up information yesterday about bumblebees, or about bees, not specifically bumblebees, about bees. Do you know that in the course of their lifetime, which isn't very long, a honeybee produces 1/2 teaspoon of honey. That's it. And they can tell by the smell of flowers if they are nectar producers or pollen producers. They can see ultraviolet light, which means that our world looks very different to them. And I don't know if ultraviolet is just one color for them. I'm not really sure. But they're seeing an entirely different rainbow of colors than we do. These tiny, tiny little creatures with brains the size of a sesame seed can do all of these things. So I was looking at how incredibly remarkable the creatures of Earth are, we being one. There was a story, before I go on with the creatures, there was a story that a teacher was trying to teach his third grade class about blood circulation, how it worked. And so he wanted to make the process clearer, and so he said, now students, if I stood on my head, the blood, as you know, would rush to my head and my face would turn red. And they all said, yes, sir, we know this, yes. He said, why is it then that while I'm standing upright on my feet in the ordinary position, that the blood doesn't all rush into my feet? And little Johnny, who was, there was always a kid in your class who wanted to answer the question right away, first thing, and Johnny jumped up and he shouted, because your feet aren't empty. Oh, not too complimentary to the teacher. So when we're learning about how things work on Earth, in plants and animals, how we get food or make food, how our bodies circulate, all of the complexities about them, I felt like I wanted to share some of that with you today, because I think it's stuff that we don't necessarily know or remember, and it isn't necessarily things that we think about with the sense of gratitude and awe that really these things ought to engender in us, I think. So nature's specificity can be observed in the hatching of eggs. The eggs of a potato bug hatch in 7 days, of a canary in 14 days, of a barnyard hen in 21 days, but for ducks and geese it's 28 days, for a mallard duck 35 days, for the parrot and the ostrich 42 days. Now, one of the things you might notice about this is all of their gestation ages are divisible by 7. Isn't that interesting? They say the world was made in 7 days. Interesting. Also, the elephant, the 4 legs of the elephant all bend forward in the same direction. No other quadruped does that. So with 4 fulcrums, an elephant can rise from the ground. Now, elephants only sleep on average about 2 hours a day, and they do it standing up. And they sleep mostly between 2 and 6 a.m. sometime when it's quieter in the world. And to do REM sleep, they do that every 3 or 4 days. They will lie down, generally on their side. But they can't do that for long periods of time because they're so heavy and their organs are so large that breathing and circulation would be difficult if they were to lay down all the time. So they actually will roll over on their side and they use all 4 legs to get themselves up. Now, a horse rises from the ground, front legs first. A cow rises from the ground, hind legs first. And so does a camel. And I know this because I sat on a camel in India. And I got to tell you, when they're already down, that's fine. When they get up, hind legs first, you pitch forward like you would not believe. And when they get back down, they go down front legs first, so you pitch forward again while you're trying to get back down again. They're also kind of prickly, but so are elephants. That's another story. So these creatures, every one of them, is designed specifically, uniquely. That particular type of creature has a specific design that serves the body type and function that they have. Dragonflies operate each wing independently. They can see 360 degrees around them, almost. So every single creature has these wondrous, amazing difficulties that are overcome by their design specifically for them. So we know from looking at the roots of trees and the blood vessels and that there are patterns that repeat across species, but each species has its unique designs that are specific to that form and do what it needs to do for its survival, its reproduction, its beauty, because these things aren't just designed for utilitarian purposes. I mean, Really, have you ever gone snorkeling in Hawaii? If you hadn't done that and you were to see one of those fish, a drawing or picture of one of those fish, you would think it was made up. Who would design something that way with stripes and dots and bright colors? It's like, come and eat me is what it looks like when you see the fish. They're designed, and yet that particular species, that design, that color, that's going to be unique to that creature, clownfish with their stripes. Amazing, amazing. So we look at these different creatures, we realize how astounding it is the way in which they are designed, and that our planet has so many creatures of so many varieties. Then we look at ourselves. Now, this is even more amazing. Granted, we have come forward to be very complex. So all the complexity of our systems that are cycling all the time, everything the body does, that it does automatically, it's incredible the amount of stuff the body does. The amount of stuff that it does in a given day or week or month or year. So let me share some of this with you because I think that you should be amazed. If you were freeze-dried, 10% of your body weight would be from microorganisms. You are 10% bacteria, and if you were not, you would be dead. So I wonder, are they actually separate, or are they simply part of us? Are they us in the way that we are the expression of God? They live in us, they need us, we need them. It's a kind of a symbiotic thing, but maybe we are one creature that includes multiple creatures. That's a possibility. Also, your body contains more bacterial cells than human cells. The average human hosts 39 trillion bacterial cells compared to 30 trillion human cells. So you're actually more of them than you are of you. Most of them are beneficial and they live in our gut. So they aid in digestion and also in immune function. So we want them. The tooth is the only part of a human body that cannot heal itself. Why? Although I don't think fingernails heal themselves, but maybe I'm quibbling. The human eye, just the eye, is incredibly sensitive. It is able to distinguish over 10 million different colors. 10 million different colors. And the average person blinks 6,205,000 times in a year. 6 million blinks in 1 year. This is just an eyeball. It's just this little tiny part of the entire body. 1 square inch. Now I want you to think about what a square inch is. 1 square inch of skin contains 4 yards of nerve fibers, 1,300 nerve cells, 100 sweat glands, 3 million cells, and 3 yards of blood vessels. 1 square inch of skin. Skin is our body's largest organ, and it regenerates. This skin that contains all this stuff, it regenerates itself approximately every 28 days. Human beings shed about 9 pounds of skin every year. Thank God we don't do it all at once, like our cats that are shedding at home now. It would be, can you imagine? There'd be piles of skin everywhere we try to, oh dear, no. We also produce about a quart of saliva every day, or 10,000 gallons in a lifetime. The human body contains enough sulfur to kill all the fleas on a dog, enough carbon to make 900 pencils, enough potassium to fire a toy cannon, enough fat to make 7 bars of soap. Personally, I think I could make 8. Enough phosphorus to make 2,200 match heads, and enough water to fill a 10-gallon tank. So when I say that we're mostly water, yeah, but we got all this other stuff in us too. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day. 100,000 times. How many of those beats did you intentionally make sure you did? You thinking about it right now? Like, okay, stop your heart for a second and then start it again. How many of you could do that? Maybe there's some magician out there who can do that. Maybe there's some monk out there who can do that. But usually we can't. Your heart pumps 100,000 times a day, pumping blood through over 60,000 miles of blood vessels. And in 1 hour, the heart works hard enough to produce the equivalent amount of energy needed to raise almost 1 ton of weight a yard off the ground. Your heart can circulate your entire blood volume about once per minute. That's just the heart. If we laid them end to end, the blood vessels in the human body would cover over 60,000 miles, which is enough to circle the earth more than twice. The smallest blood vessels, called capillaries, are so tiny, so thin, that blood vessels have to go through single file, 1 blood vessel at a time. So we'll just let that be there. Your brain is only 2% of your body weight, but it uses nearly 20% of your body's energy. And ounce for ounce, this amazed me, ounce for ounce, bone is stronger than steel. It's stronger than steel. The liver is one of the most resilient organs in the human body. It can regenerate from as little as 25% of its original tissue. And it has over 500 different functions. The liver. That's not even the kidney, which does even more stuff. These are just single organs. I'm not even going into the details about the ones that I haven't mentioned. And our bodies have developed from these single-celled creatures to be able to do all of this. And yet some of us think that it happened spontaneously. Really? That seems incredible to me. I think the complexity is the intelligent design, not that we burst forth just exactly in our wholeness as we are, but that the intelligent design, not being stuck in impatience, allows us lots of time to create and develop. Who knows what we're becoming or where we're going? But here we are, creatures on this water planet, doing all these amazingly complex things physically. And this does not touch upon consciousness, our awareness of ourselves at all. It, in fact, frees our consciousness up to do all of the thinking and creating and imagining and wondering and experimenting and discovering that we do. I was watching as Wendy was playing the piano this morning, and I was remembering that as a little tiny girl, I used to watch Liberace on television. This is way before the sparkles. He would just come out in a tux. There'd be a candelabra on the piano. And I thought the piano was the most amazing thing I could conceive of. I just was mesmerized watching him play the piano. So when I was watching Wendy play the piano, I was thinking, human beings invented these. They created these. How did that happen? White keys and black keys, they do different things. You combine them different ways and they do different things. But who would ever think to put those all together? Or to make something that you could just touch and it would make a tone, rather than something that you pound on or shake or hum or blow through. Those things I can understand how that could have happened. But this is a miracle. Don't you think? And so many musical instruments are like that. Yes, human beings sing, and human beings talk, and human beings like to pound on things and make percussion, or shoot things and make big noises, or explode things and make big visuals and that kind of stuff. We do all of that. But music, the science of notes, of putting notes together, particular forms of scales, we thought of that. We created that. It's amazing to me that we could do these things. Do you feel amazed by this? Or am I just talking to myself? Our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote in Practical Application of the Science of Mind, the universe is full of life, and that life is the life of God, because there's no other source from which it could possibly come. God is life, and the nearer we come to an understanding of this and of our oneness with God, the less we shall be subject to anything that limits life. We have this amazing potential because of these bodies that do all the stuff that they do to give us long lives, to assist us to be healthy, and to liberate our consciousness to allow us to travel in thought. What if? What would happen if I did this? I wonder what that place is like. We learn about people who do distance viewing, remote viewing, or who travel in an astral form someplace else. I don't know people who do a lot of that, but at the same time, human beings are kind of exploring this, what is beyond the body that we can be conscious of. There's so much more on this planet itself and within our own physical bodies that we don't understand yet, or we don't know about, or we haven't gotten there yet to look into it. If you think of God, if you think of this mystery, this divine whatever it is, in a cell, in a single cell, how simple and tiny that is. Yet at a certain point, for some reason, it becomes two. It stretches, and then it separates into two-ness, having multiplied itself. This one tiny little cell. And then we think of the complexity of what our bodies are doing. And then think about asteroids and meteors and shooting stars and black holes and red dwarfs and planets and moons and space dust. How complex that is. And God is fully present there and fully present here and fully present in that little tiny cell with complete awareness of what is going on in all of those places, all at the same, well, I can't say time, because we know there's no time in the infinite. It's beyond, or it's, I don't really want to say beyond, it's unlimited as to time and space. I don't really grasp that. I don't think I'm meant to. Here we are in the midst of this, and Ernest Holmes says to us, how can we practice the presence of God unless we believe that God is right where we are? God and life are the same thing, and we are living in God and in life. For everything we do, say, and think is life living itself through us, expressing itself in us. It is amazing. And I think about one of our practitioners, and she's probably watching this morning, Gail Durkin, who every single time I talk to Gail, one of the things that she expresses is gratitude. Gratitude for her life, gratitude for everybody who helps her, who makes it possible for her to do life the way that she is able to do it. Always gratitude. I never hear complaints. Always gratitude. And I think, suppose that we were to take that as a model to live in really appreciation and gratitude of the complexity of everything we see. Human beings not only figured out how to cover themselves so they would be protected from the elements, from leaves and plants and animal substances they could weave together and make into cloth to put on themselves, hide they could use to put on their feet, to protect their feet. Well, that wasn't nearly enough. We had to dye things to make them certain colors. We had to embroider them or stamp them or do something with them to give them designs. We had to decide we wanted different kinds of edging and different lengths and different weights for different weather. Just clothing is amazing. We had to figure out how to sew them, not only by hand, but by machine. Do you know, the fellow who invented the sewing machine figured out how to do a sewing machine needle because of a dream he had. He had a dream in which he was in a country where there were cannibals, and they were aiming spears that had holes at that bottom end. And when he woke up, he thought, that's what the needle needs to be like. The hole needs to be at the bottom, not at the top, like with a needle you sew with. The very point that goes through has to be the end that the hole is on. But he didn't come to it by figuring it out in a logical step-by-step manner. His subconscious went to work on it, and from somewhere, this dream arose that gave him the answer he had been looking for. Amazing. I think that's amazing. How many people speak multiple languages? You know, I was told years ago that the Japanese have a joke. What is a person who speaks 3 languages called? Trilingual. What is a what are people who speak 2 languages called? Bilingual. What are people who speak 1 language called? Americans. That's right, Americans. People who speak 1 language. Well, hopefully we're learning a little more about some of the languages that are in the country with us, but gradually we're trying to get that sense of the whole thing. There is within us breath. And breath, everything that lives breathes somehow. So creatures underwater breathe with gills, we breathe with lungs, we breathe air, plants breathe carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. Breathing happens on this planet. So we could say also that it is the planet of moving air as well as the planet of water. Now, do you know, in the Hebrew language, there is a word. Oh, those are the facts about your body. We talked about that. In the Hebrew language, there is a word, ruach or ruacha, which means breath, but it also means spirit, and it also means wind. One of the things about Middle Eastern languages is that they're very layered, so that one sentence might mean several different things, depending on how you interpreted all the words within that sentence. And it might depend upon the facial expression, the body language, the gestures of the person speaking it. So how do we take the Aramaic language, the Hebrew language, and translate it into English? Well, it's tricky. Context is part of what translators use to figure out what to say. But at the same time, that might make a difference. I want to read to you something from Psalm 104. All creatures look to you to give them food in their due season. When you give it to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are satisfied with good things. When you hide your face, they are terrified. When you take away their ruacha, they die and return to dust. So that's usually translated as when you take away their breath, they die and return to dust. But what if it was when you take away their spirit, they die and return to dust? Couldn't that be said of what happens when people are oppressed? We take away their breath, we take away their spirit, their wind. And then it goes on to say, when you send your ruach, they are created. When you send your breath, they are created. When you send your spirits, that's how it's usually translated. When you send your wind, they are created. And you renew the face of the earth. With just that one word, if you looked through any of the passages of the Bible and you saw the word spirit, what might happen if you substituted the word breath or breeze or wind for that word? Or where wind shows up, what if you separated that out and called it spirit or breath? How would that be different? You know, respiration is about spirit. Inspiration, I don't know that desperation actually goes in there, but expiration, respiration, all of those things are related to the movement of spirit. Isn't that an interesting thing to understand about our own process of breath? You might say that we are always exchanging spirit in and out. We're always exchanging spirit. So Ernest Holmes wrote this in The Science of Mind, and as I was reading it last night, I was thinking, this is really a meditation. This is really like a prayer. So I'm going to read it to you line by line. And what I want you to do is take in each sentence and feel it. Rather than trying to picture it or think it, see if you can feel it. You might want to close your eyes for this. Everything I do, say, or think is stimulated by the truth. There is power in this word I speak because it is of the truth and it is the truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and my affairs. All belief in wrong action is dispelled and made negative. Right action alone has power, and right action is power, and power is God, the living Spirit Almighty. This Spirit animates everything that I do, say, or think. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am continuously directed. I am compelled to do the right thing at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. Okay, you can open your eyes. Now, that I thought would be something to take and digest, to let it infuse you. So I put it on a bunch of cards that are back at the activity table. I didn't make enough for everybody because I figured everybody wouldn't care or want one. But they are back there by the name tag stand. So feel free to take one if you would like. And what I would recommend that you do with it is sit down somewhere quiet, like where you do your meditation, and read it sentence by sentence. And with each sentence, close your eyes and take a breath of spirit. And then open your eyes and read the next sentence. And just take the time it takes to feel into it and let it settle in your body. Because our minds are completely supported by our bodies, but our minds can also be the support for our bodies and our lives and our consciousness. as we consciously choose the thoughts we think and dwell in them. Does this make sense, what I'm saying to you? So I want to share with you a little story. This story comes from a book called The Holy Man. And it's a bunch of little anecdotes about the people who wait in a long line that goes all the way up the mountain to sit in the presence of this holy man. And so they wait, and they're amazed by how many people he manages to see in a day. But still, some of them don't get to see him that day. They have to come back the next day. So this is a little story about the holy man. There was a holy man who lived in a hermitage on a mountain. When word got out about him, people came to see him during the summer months. First, just a few people, and then more and more, until there was a long line climbing the steep mountain path, single file, tens, then hundreds, and then thousands. The line moved slowly, but it moved continuously during the few hours a day that he welcomed people. In fact, those who were near the head of the line and could observe were amazed by how many people he managed to see, even though they were only admitted one at a time. When the door was opened wide, the next pilgrim in line waiting beyond the gate would be summoned forth by a man in wheat-colored robe, a small, nondescript-looking person. Yes, he would say when the pilgrim reached the threshold, "I've come to see the holy man. Follow me, please." And he or she would follow the small man through the house, along a hallway, with doorways open to various rooms into which the pilgrim would peek hastily, but the monk ahead was moving so very quickly through the house that the pilgrim couldn't linger, but literally had to rush after him. And in no time at all, they passed through the entire first floor of the house and were at a large door, similar to the one the pilgrim had entered. It was the back door. The monk opened it wide and said, "Goodbye." "But I've come to see the holy man," the visitor said plaintively. "You have seen me," he gently replied. And the next thing the pilgrim knew, he would be outside, the door solidly closed behind him. This is why the line moved so rapidly, and how the holy man got to see so many people, or so many people got to see him. Most times, the holy man would add, "If you look on everyone you meet as a holy person, you will be happy." This, I think, is the whole message that I want to leave you with today. We are amazing, and it isn't just us. Everything on the planet, every plant, every blade of grass, every snowflake, every dandelion, every little seed of every little thing, and every creature, and we ourselves, are holy. We're just used to us, and so we don't recognize it when we're looking. I want to invite you to begin practicing breathing light, breathing spirit, and looking at things around you with amazement that you are here to experience and witness them, that you are here to experience and be this amazing creature, this amazing creation, this part of the earth family, because we are all remarkable creatures. And so it is. Namaste. Thank you. Let's take a moment to anchor this inside. God, vast and present, right here, right now, exactly where I am, and exactly where all here are. Every seat is filled with that divine presence. So I speak this word recognizing that there is power and wonder and amazement going on everywhere around me and within me. I bring my consciousness intentionally now to that amazement, and I open my mind and heart like a little child in awe of all that is here in this room, of all that is here in each of us. And I claim for all of us here a deepening of remembering, a deepening of awareness, an embrace of great gratitude for all that is, and that we are here to be it and experience it right now. The transformations taking place in the universe, in the earth, in the creatures and the people of the earth is vast and far-reaching and is a greater mystery than I can possibly encompass. And I allow this with such gratitude and enthusiasm to do its highest work within each one of us, to work as perfectly in our awareness, in our immune systems, in our joy, as is humanly possible and more. I open to this knowing there is no limit in the presence of God to what can be done, and so I claim and accept greater good than I have ever known, greater good for each one of us than we have ever imagined. I open this week into wonder, and I'm deeply grateful that this is so. I let this prayer go now into that creative law of mind and spirit and even greater mystery. I let it go into that place where it is taken hold of and produced perfectly. I let it be so with love and awe and celebration and appreciation. And if you accept this for yourself, join me now in saying together, and so it is.